folks, the first thing we're going to discuss today is the incredible value of being in command of your own moods, of your own emotional state. The first of the 5 simple choices is, for lack of a better term, happiness. And folks, this is what seems to surprise many people about the happiness choice. Its position on the list, the fact that it is by necessity the very first of the 5 simple choices. For many people, this is kind of tough to accept at face value. You see, many people believe that the final and ultimate purpose of absolutely everything else in their lives is happiness. I mean, everything they want, everything they do, everything they believe or try to create is all part of their never-ending pursuit of, well, happiness. Well, folks, this belief, this view of happiness as the hoped-for end result of all of your other pursuits, well, it's one of the most counterproductive and self-destructive mindsets ever to be held by human beings. This attempt to manipulate the physical world and the behavior of other people so as to try to cause some internal emotional state, well, it's silly, it's factually mistaken, and folks, it is 180 degrees exactly backwards. This traditional approach to the pursuit of happiness is very much like trying to paint your house by taking a paintbrush, sticking it in a bucket of paint, then taking the paint-covered brush, holding it at the edge of your arm, then jacking up your house off its foundation and trying to drive your house back and forth against the brush held at the end of your stationary arm. This traditional approach to the pursuit of happiness is an attempt to move things that are huge and complicated and cumbersome, circumstances and the behavior of other people, in an almost always futile attempt to impact something that is agile and completely under your control, your day-to-day emotional state. Folks, happiness isn't pleasure. I mean, happiness isn't even success. I'm sure you've all heard that money won't buy happiness, and while that is completely true, neither will love or fame or achievement. Happiness is a fundamental human emotional need. Happiness is an emotional state that's required for higher levels of personal growth. I mean, folks, happy people can create and grow and build. Happy people just seem to make good things happen around them. Unhappy people, they just try desperately to become happy. And the more unhappy the people are, the more desperate and destructive their pursuit of happiness tends to become. I mean, in his hierarchy of human needs, Abraham Maslow contends that the very highest order human need, at the very highest level of human maturity, is self-actualization. Now, self-actualization can perhaps be most simply described using that good old U.S. Army recruiting slogan, "Be all that you can be." Self-actualization is the desire to begin with the raw material of you, and with that raw material, create the best of all possible end results. Self-actualization represents growth. It represents fulfillment. But folks, happiness is something else entirely. Happiness it's a simple emotional state. It's a feeling. It is, however, required for the highest levels of personal growth because happy people tend to seek fulfillment and they seek growth, while unhappy people, they just try desperately to find a way to be happy. Now, to understand the nature of this weird thing that we call happiness, sometimes it helps to view long-term fundamental happiness as the polar opposite of depression, which of course is long-term chronic sadness. Now, an interesting fact about depression is that it typically has very little at all to do with the current circumstances of a depressed person. People that wallow in misery do not necessarily have it worse than people who don't. Depression is not caused by negative circumstances. Depression is sometimes neurochemical. Sometimes it will have been taught. Heck, in some cases, you'll see multi-generational depression. Whole families can be depressed. But in all of these cases, the depression is an independent thing. Depression exists completely apart from the circumstances being experienced by a depressed person. Now, this is often a very difficult thing for a person who is experiencing a depression to understand or accept. You see, depression seeks out targets of focus. The depression will seek out negative life circumstances, or maybe just perceived negative life circumstances, or maybe even just anticipated negative life circumstances to attach itself to. A depressed person could list for you this list of unimaginable woes, and they spend most of their waking hours thinking about these reasons for their depression. Well, just suppose that you could, take out a magic wand, maybe very much like this one, wave it around, and instantly fix everything that a depressed person was depressed about. Man, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Sadly, it wouldn't make things better for our depressed person. Not at all. While these targets of focus for the depression might be gone, the depression itself would remain. The depression would immediately begin to seek out new targets of focus, and within moments, our depressed person could be right back in front of you, once again listing all of the great woes of his or her life. The fact that yesterday's list of woes was totally and completely gone would not be relevant to our depressed person at all. Today's new list, comprised entirely of stuff that didn't exist or didn't matter yesterday, would still be soul-crushing. One of the keys to addressing depression is to recognize that the depression itself has almost nothing to do with the reasons you believe are the cause of the depression. The depression is an independent, learned thing. It just finds negative things to think about to reinforce itself. Well, folks, all of these things we discussed about depression are also true of happiness, but in reverse. Much like depression, happiness also seeks out targets of focus. Happiness seeks out circumstances that prove to a happy person that he or she is right to be happy. Happy people are continually amazed at how great things are, and they're thankful. Now, this doesn't mean that a happy person couldn't be stung by tragedy or disappointment, but if a happy person were to lose some of those things that made them happy, the happiness would replace those things. The key, important similarity between depression and happiness is this. Most people have the cause and effect relationship between their mood and their daily circumstances exactly backwards. Your circumstances do not cause your mood. In a very real and practical way, it is your mood that causes your circumstances. The happiness choice is first for a very important reason. You see, you are going to try to be happy. You can't defer your own pursuit of happiness over the long term any more than you can defer your personal need to breathe over the long term. Eventually, reflex is going to take over, and you will do things that you believe might cause you to become happy. And in doing that, there's really only two ways to try to be happy. You could do this a new way. You could simply choose happiness. You're going to learn some specific techniques to do this in just a few moments, and It's a lot more simple than you might think. Or, of course, you could, choose to seek out happiness the old-fashioned way. You could seek out and pursue circumstances and things and people that you believe have the power to cause you to become happy. The problem with the second alternative is that you don't get to consciously choose those things that you believe might make you happy. Your subconscious places happiness targets out there in front of you and tells you to go fetch. Hey, look here, boy. I got a little treat for you. Got a little bit of happiness for you right here in this box. All you have to do is go fetch that, that job promotion. You go fetch the promotion, and I might let you have a little bit of this happiness right here. Are you ready, boy? Go get it! If you pursue happiness in this way, your life becomes something of an emotional wild goose chase. You keep trying to fetch the balls thrown for you, and you wonder why it doesn't make you happy, even if you occasionally catch one. People who seem to have the worst personal circumstances are often just pursuing happiness the only way they know how. They just have no conscious control over their happiness targets or the pressing need to pursue those targets. Their entire life is spent in the pursuit of happiness, but for the most part, they remain unhappy. So, how do you change? I mean, if you understand that the things you thought might bring you happiness won't, if you understand that happiness is far more likely to bring about positive circumstances in your life than positive situations are likely to bring you happiness, then what do? How in the world do you start? How can you become happy? Well, the solution, while perhaps not easy, is very simple. Make happy a verb, not an adjective. Now, folks, this is going to become a reoccurring theme throughout our time together today. Your life is an act. Your life is a verb. You are what you do. If you're waiting for some magically bestowed feeling that will allow you to act in the way that you wish that you felt, you're going to be waiting for a very long time. If, however, you will act first, if you will choose to do first, you will emotionally internalize your actions almost immediately. There is a large body of research showing that smiling is not merely a demonstration of happiness, but it can serve as a cause of happiness as well. People don't merely smile when they are happy. Smiling on purpose causes people to become more happy. And this is also true of other demonstrations of happiness, like speaking to people cheerfully, giving a positive response when asked, "How are you today?" Singing in the shower, and simply choosing to exhibit a positive demeanor, even if you don't really feel it at the moment. Especially if you don't really feel it at the moment. Folks, we all have two sets of behavior. One we exhibit when we're in a great mood and positive and enthusiastic, and the other one we exhibit when we're mopey, kind of in a bad mood. When you decide that your mood does not get to control your actions, you do, everything changes right now. This, my friends, can be one of the most empowering realizations of your entire life. You can gain control of your emotional state by taking charge of your actions. It's a decision that you can make right now before you stand up from the chair you're sitting in. The key is to stop thinking of happiness as some vaguely defined feeling that you're waiting patiently to experience that you hope external circumstances somehow causes within you, and start thinking of happiness as something that you intentionally choose to do. Happiness does not have to be some nebulous emotional prize that you may or may not receive for achieving some moving target goal that you didn't get to choose. Happiness can be a choice. It can be right now. And the strength created by a stable and true happiness can serve as the foundation for achieving anything that you want.